I am reading AGHORA at the Left Hand of God by Robert Svoboda. Chapter 1. Ma. To be a guru, you have to say, I know, and I can teach you. But if I say that, well, I'm finished. I can never learn anything else. I've shut myself off from anything new. If I remain a student all my life, though, I will always be ready to learn new things. I never call any of the people who come to me for spiritual guidance disciples. I am just an ordinary person. I have lived unknown and I will die unknown, except to a few. I am not interested in anything the world can offer me, and even if I die tomorrow, I have no regrets. I have lived my life to the fullest. I have done enough. I'll always be thankful to nature for permitting me to achieve so much. I will never have disciples, only children, because that is the way a real guru should treat a disciple, as a spiritual son or daughter. And the bond between them is far more intense than that between a physical parent and a child. Even if the child is wicked or wayward, do the parents stop loving it? No. In fact, if they are true parents, they will love the child all the more, because that child gives them an opportunity to demonstrate their generosity and love. Just as in the case of the prodigal son, the parents have a chance to forgive the child, and that feeds the ego. So no matter what the child might do, its parents are always bound to love it, if they are true parents. It is the same way with a guru and his disciples. No matter where the child goes or how much he curses the guru, the mentor will know the child must return eventually. Where will he go? The guru can afford to wait for the child and forgive him when he returns. Once there was a guru who made one of his disciples put on a loincloth and sent him out into the world. Tying on a loincloth symbolized that the boy was meant to be a celibate mendicant. Everything went fine for the boy until one day when he washed his loincloth, and while it was hanging up to dry, a mouse came along and chewed up part of it. The boy said to himself, "This will never do. I need a cat." So he got a cat to save his loincloth from mice. But then the cat had to eat. So he made arrangements for a cow to provide milk for the cat. Who will look after the cow? A cowherd was engaged to cut grass to feed the cow. But then how to pay for the cowherd? A field was taken and farming was begun, so there would be produce with which to pay the cowherd. The farm in turn required labor, and in addition, the boy had to live nearby in order to oversee it. So a house was constructed. Who was to run the house? A wife is necessary. So the boy married and threw away the loincloth, which was the cause of the whole mess in the first place. When the guru returned to that area after some time to check on his disciples' progress, he was amazed to see a large farmhouse and cultivated fields where he had expected to find jungle. Outside the gate of the house was a watchman who asked the guru what business he had in the neighborhood. When the guru asked where his boy might be, the watchman replied, "Sahib? Oh, he is in a house." The guru said to himself, "Wah, wah, my boy, so you have become a great man, a sahib," and went into the house to meet the boy. After the usual greetings, he told his disciple, "Look how you have gotten yourself retangled in the world. Now don't worry, I am here to save you. Forget all this and come back with me to the jungle." The boy replied, "Oh no, Maharaj, this is much more to my liking. I intend to stay here." The guru didn't say anything else, but went off a little distance to meditate. Within a short time, the disciple's mind changed completely. He realized the cage he had created for himself, and he left everything and returned to his guru. This is the kind of guru to have. One who, once he accepts you as his disciple, never forsakes you until the end, come what may. The bond between guru and disciple is stronger than any other, which is why the guru is to be respected even before God. People come to me for many reasons, Basically, though, they come because they are miserable. Most of them have worldly miseries and are satisfied with worldly happiness, which is why I don't talk to most people about spirituality. Most people are just not interested in experiencing anything other than food, sleep, and sex, no matter what they may claim. I'm sorry, but it's true. And the few who are after more in life are mainly after the happiness which the world can provide them. Fame, money, possessions, children, whatever. Very, very few are really interested in spirituality. And this is the way it should be. If everyone became spiritual and lost interest in the world, all our society would grind to a halt. So the yoga, which teaches you to go out into the jungle, is not meant to be taught to everyone. This is why I have not been able to find a language foul enough to express how I feel about the so-called yogis, swamis, and godmen who India has been exporting to the West to teach spirituality. Yoga is not a system of physical jerks. Know it once and for all. Yoga is meant to make every home a happy home. When every family member is giving out his or her best to unite the family and make it a success, that is real yoga. And I don't mean the family you were born into or married into necessarily. Whoever you live with is your family. As we say in Sanskrit, Vasudeva Kutumba. We are all members of God's family. So when people come to me for instruction, I don't tell them to do exercises or pay priests to do some rituals on their behalf or to go on pilgrimage or anything else like that. I tell them to first clear up their personal lives. Most people are not destined to become truly spiritual in this lifetime, and there is no use in trying to force them. They will just become miserable. If they are downright materialistic, well, I always say, for those who believe in God, no proof of his existence is necessary. For those who do not believe in God, no proof is possible. If they are partly materialistic and partly spiritual, the true guru will see that they marry happily and live contentedly and observe simple spiritual practices. This will ensure their progression for future lives. The ones who are destined for it, the ones who have already done plenty of preparation in past existences, will be taught fully. The guru does not need his physical body to guide you, remember. He may use other teachers, or he may work directly through nature. The first year of my life, I took mother's milk. The next 5 years, nothing but cow's milk. For the next 8 years, I lived on nothing but 3 fistfuls of chickpeas. I would soak them overnight in water, then take 1 fistful morning, afternoon, and evening. No one told me to do it. It just seemed to me to be the right thing to do. Then for 3.5 years, I ate nothing but green chilies and water. When I finally started eating what people would call normal food, I began by taking only raw vegetable because I wanted something crunchy, something to bite. You know how animals always prefer their food to be raw? For 23 years, I never tasted salt, just because I didn't want to. One day, during my boyhood, I was standing alone, doing nothing in particular, when suddenly, like a bolt of lightning, I heard a mantra. I liked it and started to repeat it. No one told me to do so, but I got such a good feeling from it that soon I was repeating it most of the time. You see how nature works? When I was in the first year of college, my classmates and I went to Benares on a university tour. I met 2 saints while I was there. One was, oh man, these names kill me. One was Bhaskarananda Saraswati, the sadhu who predicted to Lady Willingdon that she would become viceroy of India. It was honored with a formal reception by the grateful lady when this occurred. Imagine, a naked ascetic walking through a cordon of honor composed of troopers with drawn swords. The other saint I met was Talang Swami. He has now left his body after a life of more than 370 years. He weighed only about 300 pounds, and he had short white hair and a short beard. He never had anything to do with clothing except for a 1008 bead rosary. He's the only person in the history of Benares to ever perform a ritual bath of Kashi Vishveshvara, the presiding deity of Benares, with his own urine and feces. When he did this, one of the temple priests was so outraged that he came over and slapped Talang Swami, who didn't bother in the least about it and merely went off. That night, the king of Benares saw Kashi Vishveshvara in a dream. The god told him, Talang Swami is my very essence. How dare anyone insult him? The next day, the king tried to locate the priest to punish him, but learned he had died suddenly during the night. Talang Swami was a wonderful Aghori. When I met him, he motioned to me to come over and sit next to him. He never spoke for almost 100 years, and he started playing with my hair and rubbing the back of my head. I left, and I don't know what he did to me, but back in Bombay, I began experiencing some queer things. One night, Talang Swami came to me in a dream and requested me to return to Benares to visit him again, which I did. At that time, I had no inkling of the nature of the relationship between us. Later, when I met my junior guru Maharaj, I learned that Talang Swami was his disciple. This made us guru brothers. And in his magnanimity, he was helping to prepare me for what was to happen next. After some time, a few of my classmates took me to see a Jain ascetic by the name of Jina Chandra Suri. The old man peered at me, and after a close inspection requested me to bring my horoscope to him the next day. I did. After carefully pursuing it, he inquired about my willingness to learn astrology, palmistry, and the physiognomy. I'm not even sure what that means from him. I don't know what made me agree, but I agreed, and I studied with him for 3 years. He taught me how to construct yantras and perform rituals. I enjoyed it. Comment from Jeff Smith. Get to the cum drinking already. JK. There's cum drinking. It's coming. The cum is coming. We're getting to that part. I think that's chapter 3, so stick with me. I'll read this whole fucking thing. Don't you worry, Jeff. Poop smearing, cum drinking, body fucking. We'll do it all. One day, he casually asked me to accompany him on a trip outside Bombay. He took me to Janakpur, up in the erstwhile Darbhanga state, which is now part of Bihar. I thought we were just on a holiday, and for 2 or 3 days, I had a fine time. The villagers were very hospitable, and I enjoyed a good rest. On the new moon night, though, everything went wrong. Jina Chandra Suri came and met me and started speaking very sweetly to me. I wondered what had come over him. There was certainly no need for such ingratiating behavior. I now know he was just fattening me up for the kill, because after all the preliminaries he told me, now you are going to do Shava Sadhana. I had no idea what he was talking about. When I asked him, he explained that a fresh corpse, or Shava, had been obtained, and that I was to sit on the corpse and perform a ritual. Apparently, he had looked into my horoscope and realized that I could succeed at this sort of sadhana. He must have planned out the whole drama over the last 3 years. Well, I told him I had no intention of doing anything like sitting on a corpse and performing sadhana. I had done some yoga before, but our family worships Krishna, and for us it is unthinkable to have anything to do with dead bodies or spirits or anything like them. Besides, since childhood, I could never see a corpse without breaking out in a sweat and falling into a faint, all because I so strongly self-identified with the dead individual. Once or twice, when I was out driving, I met a funeral procession and actually lost control of the car and allowed it to run onto the footpath. It was very dangerous. So I couldn't even imagine what would happen to me were I to sit on a corpse. Jina Chandra Suri started to try to convince me, but I was adamant. Finally, he lost his temper. It was the first time I had seen the old man get angry. He told me, "If you refuse to do it, I'll perform the ritual myself on your corpse." I flared up. "Who do you think you were threatening?" I assumed he was talking through his hat. To show me he meant business, he motioned to a group of drunken tribals who were standing nearby, holding knives, clubs, and other weapons. At his signal, they walked over and surrounded me. I was really in a fix. I did the sadhana there. If I did the sadhana, there was a very good chance I'd die of sheer terror, or because some spirit would catch hold of me, or maybe the deity herself would decide to take me as a sacrifice. But if I didn't do it, it was definite I would die. I decided if I was going to die either way, that I might as well perform the ritual, since there would be at least some minor chance of survival that day. When I informed the old man that I would do it, he immediately brightened up and became cheerful again. He started explaining the details of the ritual to me. How to position the corpse, how to sit on it, how to tie the lifeless thumbs and toes. Then he made me drink a full bottle of country liquor. I am the son of a Hindu merchant, and until that moment, I had never even touched an egg, much less a piece of meat or a drop of alcohol. But there was no choice. I took a big pull from that bottle. My God, I thought my throat was on fire. Tears came to my eyes. After all, it was my first time. Jina Chandrasuri was so overjoyed by my agreeing to do the sadhana that he became very solicitous about my condition. Seeing the effect of the moonshine on me, he was so concerned, he actually picked up the bottle and started feeding it to me a little at a time. By the time I had finished the whole bottle, all my fear had gone. This was the first time I had ever felt real fear in my entire life, and let me tell you, I was really scared. The only thing left for me was to foul my pants. I was so desperate. I was sweating, my hands were shaking, I was overwhelmed with terror. By the end of that bottle, though, I had lost every iota of my fear. I had made up my mind. I would either succeed at that sadhana or die trying. There was no way out. Challenge and response, the law of the jungle. I was ready. This is the beautiful effect of alcohol. You never fear or hesitate once you've taken it. It has a number of side effects, no doubt. The very few people use it for the right purposes. But for certain practices, it is essential. It was really a good thing that I drank that moonshine, because it helped me out in several ways. Then, I was taken to the corpse. It was that of a young girl of about 15, very pretty. She belonged to a tribe whose members pressed oil from seeds to earn a living. She had been dead only a few hours, and was so lovely that I forgot the ritual, the danger, the fear, and everything else, and started to think only of her. She was beautiful in the way only primitive people can be. Not an ounce of excess fat, not a wrinkle on her skin, her thighs solid like trees, her breasts absolutely firm. I found myself wishing she were still alive so I could take her off alone to a quiet place and we could enjoy together. I was even ready to marry her, she looked so lovely. This was not necrophilia or anything perverted. I was just very drunk, and I was sorry she was dead and unable to play about with me. I'm telling you the truth about all this, so you'll have some idea of what it was like. While I was drinking, they had taken her to the appropriate spot and pointed her head in the correct direction. Jina Chandrasuri, who was looking very pleased with himself, handed me an object and explained, "I am giving you my yantra, which I worshipped for 40 years in Assam. It will take care of you. There is nothing to worry about. I am going to sit over there," he said, motioning to a spot about 100 yards away, "and repeat mantras for your protection." He then took a black thread and did kilana in a big circle around me. Kila means nail, and kilana is meant to nail off or seal off an area to prevent any troublemaking spirit from disturbing your concentration. As long as you remain within the circle, you are safe. The moment you step outside the circle, you've had it. You become a spirit yourself, unless there is some ethereal being nearby who can come to your rescue, which is highly unlikely. After the kilana, the old man told me which mantra to recite, gave me japamala, or rosary, to count the repetitions, and shoved a dish of raw meat and a bowl of wine in front of me. The idea was that when the goddess appeared in the form of an animal, I should offer the meat and wine to please her. Satisfied with my worship, she would tell me to ask for a boon, and I should reply, "Do whatever my guru says to do," meaning Jina Chandrasuri. This was all the old man's idea, of course, and I had no intention of saying anything like that. First, I wanted to see whether or not the sadhana would actually work, and then if it did, I would think about what to ask her for. Jina Chandrasuri walked off and sat down, started doing japa for my protection, and I knelt on the corpse in the manner I had been shown. The supine girl's mouth was open and had been filled with oil. The old man had showed me how to make a wick of raw cotton, and I lit my wick from one of the torches the tribals were carrying. Since it was a new moon night, there was absolute blackness except for this lamp, and I could see nothing but the poor girl's face, which looked ghastly, grotesque in the flickering light of the flame. All my previous desire for enjoyment with her melted away as I peered down into her open, fixed, unstaring eyes. Both of us were stark naked, and her cold body underneath mine caused a sort of creepy feeling to spread through my entire body and mind. Here again, the alcohol saved me. Being drunk, I was able to shake off the dread and begin my japa, gazing full into her face to concentrate my mind there. The old man had warned me if she tried to get up, I should knock her down and pin her firmly, so I was intently watching for the least twitch or flinch in her body to alert me to the danger. "I suppose this is the most terrifying part of Shava," said Hana, "because it is an immense strain on your nerves if the corpse suddenly tries to sit up and begins to growl and scream at you. Many people have died of fright at this stage. One old fellow died right in front of me. He was trying to show off and challenge me to a contest. We procured 2 corpses. The idea was to see who could bring life into one most quickly and control it most firmly. I warned him that he was too old to be trying such stunts, but he was beyond reasoning with. As soon as the corpse started to sit up, he tried to control it. The spirit which had been forced to sit in the corpse caught hold of him. His nerves failed, his heart failed, and he died. But I didn't have this problem on that first night, which is good, since otherwise I probably would not be sitting here telling you this story now. I sat and did my japa. I don't know how many I did, but it can't have been too many before I suddenly began to get a very eerie, extremely queer feeling, and I saw a pair of eyes watching me from the darkness. The animal, a jackal, approached me, snarling and baring its teeth. I don't know what came over me. It must have been the alcohol, because I was so drunk I didn't care for man or beast. But I became furious. I forgot everything I had been told to do. I forgot the wine and the meat I was supposed to offer. I reached out of the circle, which had been drawn on the ground to protect me, and I grabbed the jackal. I was really incensed and said to it, "So, you want blood, do you? Take this." And I stuck my hand into his mouth. That liquor really did me immense good. I don't know what I would have done without it. The goddess, who was temporarily in the form of a jackal, was interested only in blood. One of the beast's teeth pricked my hand between the thumb and index finger, and the jackal licked up the drop of blood that oozed out. And then all of a sudden, there was Smashantara standing before me, smiling, asking what I wanted from her. Tears come to my eyes whenever I remember that scene. For years, the scar remained on my hand as a reminder of the night when I was there in that cemetery, sitting on that corpse, and I caught my first glimpse of Smashantara. I don't know what your condition would be if you were to catch sight of her. You might even die of shock. She is very tall, and her skin is beautiful deep midnight blue color. Her eyes are beautiful. That's the only way I know how to describe them. She has a long red tongue lolling from her mouth. The blood she is eternally drinking, drips slowly from the tip. She is Gatastani, or pot-breasted, and Lambadari, or full-bellied. Around her neck, there's a garland of fresh, severed human heads which are freshly bleeding. She wears wristlets and armlets of bones, and anklets of snakes. Her 4 hands grasp a pair of scissors, a sword, a noose, and a skull. She wears a skirt of human arms. And to me, she is one of the loveliest beings in the universe, because she is my mother. I suppose I should have been frightened at this terrific vision, but actually when I saw Ma for the first time, I felt as if I had known her before, perhaps in some previous birth, and that this was just a continuation of that previous Satana. I am sure this is the case, because otherwise it would have been impossible for me to achieve so quickly. Anyway, she asked me what I wanted, and I told her, "Look, I never did this for myself. I never wanted to do anything like this. That fellow sitting over there made me do it. I don't want anything except to go back to Bombay." "Don't worry," Tara assured me. "I'll see that you get to Bombay. But first, you have to ask for something." "But I don't want anything except to go back to Bombay." "But you have to ask for something," Tara insisted, smiling. "Just get me out of here first. Take me to Bombay, and then I'll ask for something." Tara laughed and told me to close my eyes. I did. When I opened them again, I was in my bedroom in our family mansion in Bombay, soaked in sweat from fear and shock. I was stunned for at least 15 minutes, and did not even know where I was. I walked from room to room like a zombie, trying to convince myself I was really back home. Gradually, I realized I had indeed returned to Bombay, and that thought gave me some relief. I was still drunk, so there was nothing to do but go to sleep. When I woke up at 11 a.m., I had a terrible hangover. Of course, I didn't know then it was a hangover because I had never experienced one before. All I knew was that my head was splitting open, bursting at the seams. I called my servant Dandu and told him to bring me some Bayer aspirin. It came as a powder back then, so I took two teaspoonfuls, and after half an hour or so, I started sweating and my headache disappeared. I felt good enough to start planning my revenge on Gina Chandrasuri for daring to lie to me about the purpose of our jaunt and getting me into such a situation. I'll never see his face again. No, I'll butcher him. Let him return to Bombay and we'll see how long his head remains on his shoulders. Thinking in this way, I suddenly remembered the yantra and rosary which were still with me. I said to myself, wait, I'm safe here in my own home. Let me try this out. There was some doubt in my mind that I had imagined or dreamed the whole thing. Just as an experiment, I sat down and started doing japa. I had not finished even 100 repetitions when Tara appeared in front of me again and asked me what I wanted from her. I said, Ma, I've really never had any intention of doing Shava Sadhana, and I don't want anything. Again, she smiled and said, ask me for something. When Ma wants to give you something, she creates a situation, so you must accept it. I finally had to tell her, Ma, I never wanted any of this. But now that I've succeeded, I would most like for you to come to me every day and permit me to worship you. She said, but I can't come here. You'll have to go daily to the Smashan. And that's just what I did. At that time, Bombay was not so crowded as it is today, and the Smashans were very lonely places. I began with the Worli Smashan. A friend of mine would drive me there every night and wait in the car while I did my work. I had arranged for a man to provide me with fresh coconut water nightly. After offering it to Ma, I would drink the rest as her prasad, a gift from her to me. There was an old fakir, a Muslim ascetic, named Mishkin Shah, who lived nearby, and who knew why I visited the cemetery nightly. After we met, we became good friends, and I would have tea with him every night. Ma would come to me nightly, and we'd talk. After some time, when I knew her better, I asked her to show me all her forms. China Masta, who carries her head in her hands and drinks her own blood as it gushes from her neck. Bagalamukhi, who has the head of a crane or heron, and all the rest of a great goddess. Many rituals were involved in achieving success at the sadhanas for them all. I also had to perform Shava Sadhana twice more, each time with a different technique. For instance, the second time I did Shava Sadhana, I did it on the corpse of a man instead of a woman, and the third time, I did it on the corpse of a woman who had died while pregnant. Gina Chandrasuri was not there to assist me those next two times I did Shava Sadhana. A few days after my experience in Janakpur, he returned to Bombay and came to meet me. He began by praising me. I am so pleased with you, my boy. I knew you could do it from the first time I saw your horoscope. Now do just as I say, and we'll be able to collect plenty of money from the Maharajas and merchants. I told him I will do nothing of the sort. You forced me to go and do a sadhana, which I never would have done willingly. I will allow you to leave with your life, only because you introduced me to my mother. I must show my appreciation to you for such a boon, even though your wicked, dirty mind had different plans for me. Were it not for this, I would ask her to make a nice mince out of you, just as you had planned to do to me. Now please get out. First, he pleaded a little bit. Then, when I saw that he was intransigent, he got wild. I'll perform a death ritual on you. I lost my temper. But I just laughed in his face and said, now I spend 24 hours of the day in the lap of my mother, so your puny threats do not worry me at all. But my mother may not like to hear you abusing her son. I suggest you keep quiet. This only infuriated him further. Give me back my yantra, he shouted. I told him firmly. I am not going to give you anything. It is time for you to leave. I had him bodily ejected from my house. And what happened? After some time, he raped a little teenage girl. And that was the end of all his spiritual power. Thereafter, he earned his living by making yantras for rich Jain merchants, charging them 10,000 or 15,000 rupees each. A about $1,000 to $1,500. We kept up our relationship, however. I guess it was because he knew the power of Smashan Tara, since he had worshipped her for 40 years and he probably still thought he might be able to get some benefit from her through me. Sometimes he would come and meet me at my house, but the connection between us was strained. He was unique, really, in his own way. As far as astrology, palmistry, and physiognomy, I can't say this word, I'm sorry, I just apologize. Retarded, drunk, and fucking mushmouth are concerned. He was a master. He had been able to dig up a number of buried treasures and texts. I had never met anyone in this world who could exceed his ability to make other people rich. Why do you want to waste your time on spiritual things? He would always tell me. Do your penance, then cash in on it. Make money, and enjoy your life. You are from a merchant's family, which means you are meant to make money, not be spiritual. Spirituality is for the Brahmins. He had himself owned tea estates earlier in his life, and had fallen in love with an English girl, the daughter of a fellow tea planter. Everyone was against them, and succeeded in breaking up the relationship. He was so disgusted with the whole situation that he left everything and became an ascetic. Although he had worshipped Smashan Tara for 40 years, he never dared try to perform Shiva Sadhana himself. He knew he could never succeed. He did attempt to make one Rati Bai do Shiva Sadhana, but as soon as Rati Bai reached the Smashan, he got such a fright that he fouled his pants and then fainted. He has not fully recovered from the effect even today. Unfortunately for Jina Chandra Suri, I was a very different sort and paid no attention to him. I was listening only to my mother, Smashan Tara. It is only by her grace that I have achieved whatever I have achieved in this life. I never told Ma that he should rape that little girl, mind you. I don't like rape. It makes me furious. It is one of the 3 acts which supposedly can't be atoned for or forgiven, along with murder of your guru and gambling. What happened to Jina Chandra Suri was that Ma withdrew her protection from him, and his mind was overcome with desire. He could have satisfied his desire in other ways, but he could not restrain himself, and this is what resulted. And besides, there must have been some karmic connection there. Otherwise, there never would have been an opportunity for him to be alone with her long enough to rape her. Had this old man been in his senses, he could have postponed the repayment of this karmic debt for some future lifetime. But because his balance of mind was lost, his natural underlying lust, which had been suppressed all those years, suddenly spurted out. It is a fine thing to collect great spiritual power, but you are headed for trouble if you ever lose control over it. You know, one person may do sadhana for years and still get no result, whereas someone else may only do a very small amount of penance and get a very great result. As was the case with me in my Shiva Sadhana. It looks unfair, doesn't it? But the person who achieves easily in this lifetime must have spent many, many lifetimes of tough austerities, just as Kalidasa did, to reach the point where only a small further effort will bring results. Someday, I'll tell you the story of Kalidasa. Right now, I have a better story for you. Listen. One time, an Aghori decided to perform Shiva Sadhana. Naturally, he couldn't do it in the city because the people there would be scandalized and would accuse him of black magic and attack him. To avoid this, he procured a corpse and carried it out into the deep jungle, sat on top of it, and began to do his japa. A woodcutter happened to pass nearby and, seeing the Aghori and the corpse, took fright and climbed a tree to hide. While he was in the tree, the woodcutter overheard the mantra which the Aghori was repeating. He was repeating it aloud to improve his pronunciation, which was proof he was still raw, because a real Aghori never speaks a mantra aloud. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a tiger appeared, and with one cuff from its paw killed the Aghori. Immediately, it began to lap up the freely flowing blood. Tigers always do that to a fresh kill. While it was busily engaged in slaking its thirst for blood, the tiger was frightened by a sound nearby and plunged into the deep underbrush. The woodcutter knew well that a tiger always returns to its kill, but he had become curious about the whole thing, and in spite of the danger, he got down from the tree to investigate. Then he wondered to himself, why shouldn't I try this out? He sat on the fresh corpse of the Agori and started to repeat the mantra he had overheard. After less than 100 repetitions, the deity suddenly appeared in front of him and said, "Ask for a boon." The woodcutter told her, "Ma, I have only done this out of curiosity." Ma told him, "That doesn't matter. What doesn't matter that I have come to you? Or what does matter is that I have come to you. Now ask for something." He said, "All right then. Tell me which law states that this fellow should not succeed, even after long penance, and that I should achieve within seconds." Ma smiled and said, "Close your eyes." When he did, he saw that he had been doing the same sadhana for the past 10 births. Ma continued, "Do you understand now? If you hadn't done this before, how could you have remembered the mantra? How would you have developed the courage to attempt the sadhana knowing the tiger would return at any moment? I was the tiger who killed the Agori. I made him come here, where I knew you would be waiting. I gave you the intelligence to remember the mantra and do the sadhana. You had only a few japas left remaining from your past birth in order to get Siddhi, and now you have it. This Agori must still go through 2 more lives before he gets an opportunity like this. Now ask me for something." The woodcutter said, "Ma, all that I desire is that you should keep me forever in your sweet gaze." In that instant, he was made. When I say he was made, I mean he obtained Siddhi. Not Kaya Siddhi, which is immortality, or Maya Siddhi, which is control over the mundane world. When you have one of these, of course, you have the other as well. No, I mean the Siddhi of having Ma with him 24 hours a day. Ma took possession of him, not his body, because if she had come for his body, he would have become immortal. She possessed his mind. She plugged him into the universal computer so that he was able to get answers for any question and could continuously play about with her. Ma came to me in the same way. Only because of the efforts of my past lives did I get the desire to study with Jina Chandra Suri. I could have easily refused, and unless I had done it in some previous existence, I would never have agreed to do Shaiva Sadhana, even under threat of death. Ma wanted me to do it, that's all. And what I have gained by succeeding at her sadhana is beyond speech. She taught me how to move around in my subtle body. She made me clairaudient and clairvoyant. I can go anywhere in the world without leaving my chair. Nothing can be hidden from me. I am talking as if I do these things, but in fact it is beyond me to do anything. Only Ma can do it. She does it all. When someone who is afflicted by disease comes to me, Ma tells me the treatment. Sometimes she will tell me this person does not deserve to get well, or it is not in this person's destiny to be cured. Whereupon I ask her, "Then why did you send this particular individual to me if you didn't want them to be benefited in some way?" And then her compassion flows and something incomprehensible occurs, and the person is cured. I always pray to her, "Ma, make me a leper, ruin me, do whatever you like, but don't ever remove me from your lap." And I know she hears me. This is the foundation of all my confidence in my abilities. Do I have any capabilities? Ha! Everything's from Ma. My ideas are individual. No one else knows about them. People sometimes ask me, "How can you have learned so much in such a short span of 60 years? I tell them, "I studied at Jnanaganj, at Manasasarovara. Jnanaganj, heap of knowledge. Manasasarovara, ocean of the mind. My knowledge is all Nijajnana, knowledge from within, from Ma. My mentor has taught me a wonderful method of being able to tune in on knowledge from anywhere with Ma's help. Other people have wondered, how can you treat someone as terrifying as Smashantara, as your mother? They can ask such stupid questions only because they are ignorant. Once you know the meaning of the form in which you see Smashantara, you will be able to understand why she is the universal mother." I believe I'm going to continue. It's pretty heavy, right? Shout out to George, my homeboy. Chapter 2, Shakti. When I'm disgusted, fed up with the world, I always turn to my mother. She comes to me in any form I request, and we play that way. Sometimes she comes as my mother, sometimes as my wife, sometimes as my child. She's always with me. She'll never go away. Long ago, we promised each other to stay together always. If she ever leaves me, I will not live even an instant longer. Who is she? My ego, the Shakti which self-identifies with my body. If she leaves me, I have to die. Most people don't know the true value of the ego, and they misuse her. But I think I am the luckiest man in the world, because my Smashantara has taught me all about my own ego, and how to realize her as Adya, the original Shakti. She is the being to be realized. Maya Shakti. Ma is the source of all knowledge, the source of both delusion and release from delusion. She is the foundation and supporter of this universe and of all possible universes. She is called Adya, because Adya means that which is first and that which is therefore eternal, which has no beginning and no end, which is ever existent. This is the only way she can form the base of the cosmos. If she too were subject to creation and destruction, what sort of foundation would she be? No. She is beyond everything, and she is the source of everything. Though she is without beginning and without end, she may exist in either the manifested or the unmanifested state. When manifested, she acts as the source of the universe in her kinetic form. When the universe dissolves, she becomes quiescent. She ceases to exist. Energy is equally energetic, whether it is kinetic or potential. Only its forms differ. And remember, you may eventually learn a few things if you work hard enough, but you will never be able to discover the origin of the universal mother, Adya. You should not even try to find out about it, because it is not to be known. It is just not knowable. But when you become Ma herself, then there is no question of any distinction between the knower and the known. How can there be any knowledge of Ma when you have become Ma herself? Ma, Shakti, Maya. These three words describe her, but each emphasizes a different attribute. Maya is her delusive aspect, her capacity to bind one to limited forms. Shakti is her aspect of power and energy, and Ma indicates her maternal aspect, the motherhood of God. Everyone is afraid of Maya because her job is to entice, entrap, enthrall, to prevent people from escaping the cycle of birth and death. Why should they be afraid of her unless they are not confident that they can resist her? Her blandishments? I don't know what that word means. Why should they be afraid of her unless they are not confident that they can resist her blandishments? It is not as if she feels hatred or envy or any other selfish emotion for the beings she enslaves. How can she? She's just doing her job. All these so-called swamis who say that Maya is evil are absolutely wrong. How can she be evil? She is the mother of all worlds. I shouldn't even call these charlatan swamis, because swami means owner or master. A real swami is the owner or master of himself. And if you are really master of yourself, Maya cannot have any effect on you, and you would have no reason to fear or hate her. These cheats make such a mess of a thing that it becomes difficult to untangle the mess and explain the reality. You must try to understand that Maya can only exist where there is duality. The universe is full of pairs, of basic principles, male and female, positive and negative, active and passive. Our philosophy maintains that the soul is only one, indivisible, in the state of Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. But the soul cannot enjoy itself unless there is some observer, someone who can perceive the reality. Observers cannot exist when the whole universe is in a state of non-duality, because all is one. No distinction between observer and observed would be possible. To satisfy this urge for an observer, Shakti projects herself. This Shakti is Adya, the undifferentiated form, the totality of all universes. She is as unbounded and absolute as is the universal soul or Atman. And the only difference between them is that she feels herself to be separated from him, the male principle, the unchanging Atman, and this gives her the impetus to try to locate him and reunite with him. Adya is herself unaware of how she projects. The whole projection is spontaneous because of joy, the overwhelming joy of existence, or Sat Chit Ananda. Because the process of this projection is unknown to everyone, it is called Maya. Eventually, Adya herself begins to become individualized. Within her, separate egos develop and become individuals. At some point, these proliferated forms begin to grope for the ultimate. At this point, the universal soul gets the observers he had yearned for. Every individual begins this quest hesitantly, but every individual will one day or another reunite with the unmanifest. Separately, the soul and Adya are impotent. Together, they create a beautiful play. When the play is over, the projection is reabsorbed into the projector until the next cycle of creation. Isn't it wonderful? People still ask me, why does Maya entice us if she is supposed to be part and parcel of the divine motherhood of God? It is not so difficult to understand. Each man and woman are part of the cosmic male and female principles. In each human, buried down deep inside, is the remembrance of the indescribable bliss of unity, of the joy, which caused the projection in the first place. However, this originally pure impulse of joy must pass through the casual, subtle, and gross physical bodies, which are like sheaths surrounding the indwelling soul. As the impulse passes through each sheath on its way to our waking consciousness, it is slightly refracted or perverted by our limitations. The purity is deflected slightly in each passage, so that by the time the impulse becomes conscious, it is more or less impure, depending on the individual. That is the true Maya, a pure impulse filtered down into our limited conscious minds, which incites us to perform karmas, which in turn tighten our bondage to the samsara. The individual personality, when it is overcome by joy, creates multiple thought waves which project for their own fulfillment. It is like the cosmic projection, but because of impurities, it is limited. These thought waves are projected from the causal body as a result of past karmas and are therefore imperfect. Most people forget that these thoughts are simply temporary manifestations, and they try to cling to them or avoid them altogether should they be uncomfortable. But if you know something about them, you can choose the way that they are destroyed. That is why my mentor taught me that complete gratification of desire is the only way to become free of Maya. When all the imperfect projections are eliminated, then only can you see the real thing. Maya is very terrifying, it is true. In fact, to frighten is really the function of Maya. Maya will always frighten you, or try to, but she will never hit you if you try to come near. People are afraid they'll be finished if they leave off whatever they are doing in their lives. If I lose all my money, what will become of me? But everyone is going to be finished sooner or later. If you tell Maya, I came into the world naked, and I will go out naked. Do whatever you please, I don't care. Then you can succeed at sadhana. A spiritual aspirant must be fearless, because then no harm can come to him. All danger arises from his own fear. This is especially true in AGHORA. The spirits of the Smashan will try to terrify you, and believe me, they know how to do it. As long as you keep your wits about you, they can't do anything to you. One little doubt though, and you are very likely to make a mistake in your sadhana, and even the slightest error may mean excruciating death, and then perennial membership in the fraternity of spirits. Maya is the external garb of the universe. When a lady is well dressed, ornamented, and made up, she may appear to be beautiful. But if you strip her naked, you will be able to count all her flaws, scars, marks, excess hair, or whatever. When you see Maya, you must look underneath to find out her real nature. A green mango is very pleasing to the eye, but quite sour to the tongue. However, with a little discrimination, you realize the green mango is just a stage in its development, and when you see the golden ripe mango, you know it must be sweet. You must become aware of the impermanence of the green state, and not rely on it to remain. The projection is dynamic, thus it is called Shakti. Shakti is energy. It emanates spontaneously and is then controlled. Shakti must always be controlled, otherwise it is worthless or dangerous, just like uncontrolled electricity. Shakti is of value only when it has been conditioned. Lord Shiva is the conditioner, the male aspect of the universal soul. He is always depicted with 3 eyes. As long as his 3rd eye is closed, Maya can exist, because then Shiva has but 2 eyes, duality, and Maya is the essence of duality. But when the 3rd eye, the eye of Jnana, transcendent wisdom, opens, he sees only unity. That 3rd eye cannot differentiate in any way, and so the cosmos, which can exist only through duality, must be dissolved. As long as Lord Shiva's 3rd eye is open, nothing can exist but the undifferentiated condition. When it again closes, then Shiva becomes subject to duality, and the cosmos can again arise. And this is why Smashan Tara has 3 eyes. She is both the manifestation of duality and the possessor of Jnana. So loving, her will never bring you grief. This is why she is called Tara. She makes you cross over the sea of duality and reach a unity. Tara will never fail you, far from it. But if you love Maya, who is pure duality, you will become trapped in the manifested world for millions of births to come. You have the choice of loving Maya or Ma, the superficial or the deep. You can't do both. Ma is never cruel. She always gives you what you desire. If you want Maya, Ma's skin, you get it. And Ma will see that you get it until you are satiated with it. Ma believes in giving you what you want. She gives it directly from her own being, because she is a mother. A mother feeds her own essence to her child in the form of milk. When you ask Ma for gratification of your mundane desires, that is just what you will get. She will keep you in the mundane world, drinking the milk of Maya, as long as you ask to remain there. If you dream of sex daily throughout your life, it is likely you'll be craving sex at the moment of death too. So Ma will say, "All right, my child. If you want sex, take as much as you can." She will help you enjoy plenty of sex by seeing that you were born as a pigeon or a cock or a sparrow. And when you have had enough, when you are thoroughly satisfied, when you cry, "Stop it, please stop it," then Ma will make you move on to new things. Ma wants you to learn your lesson. That is why you find Man-Eater reborn either as a predator or prey, or as both in succession. Human beings cry a lot at funerals of their own kind, but they have absolutely no thought for the suffering of the animals they slaughter. They never hesitate to kill and eat. Just think, first they kill the chicken. Often they will cut its throat and let it bleed to death, which is the most painful way to die. Then it will be cleaned, cooked, and eaten, and if it happens to be tough, everyone will curse it for not satisfying their palates. How many humans would give beautiful, tender, lean meat if they were slaughtered, dressed, prepared, and served? Meat eaters conveniently forget that animal mothers too love their children. Do they ever think of the agony a hen goes through when her chicks are slain in front of her eyes? Or a cow, the embodiment of motherliness? Do they consider how much she suffers when she sees the slaughter of her beloved calf, whom she has grown in her own body and nourished with her milk, whom she loves more than her own life? Do these so-called humans ever think of the terrible pain they cause to the mother cow? Could they endure their own children being murdered before their own eyes? How is Ma to teach such donkeys? They are not humans whose intellect is subtle enough to self-identify with another being of a different species, and experience its personal joys and sorrows. Ma has no alternative but to make them suffer as they have made other beings suffer, allowing the animals they have tortured to torture them in return. Fair's fair, after all. If I cut your throat in this birth, you have every right to cut mine in the next, or in some succeeding birth. Experience is the best teacher, and the fool will learn from no other. Actually, Ma is not enticing us at all. We are enticing ourselves. We look at Ma and see what we want to see. All these deities are our own projections, and our existences are our own projections. If we project the desire for flesh onto Ma, she will provide us with flesh, whether it's for eating or copulation. That's why I say about most so-called humans today that their entire cultural refinement consists of eating flesh and putting flesh into flesh. I believe in going beyond the skin, beyond the flesh, the bone, the marrow, and everything else, and getting to the essence. If you want to progress spiritually, you must forget everything except the face of the mother. She will offer you the entire cosmos to make sure you have no desires left. But when you arrive at the stage where you can pass up all temptations, when you succeed and she accepts you as her own child, then you never again have anything to worry about. Once when Ma came to me, she told me, "I'll make you ruler of the world." I laughed and said, "Ma, thanks to thy grace. I know some of my previous births, and I know I've already attained to the most the world can offer. I don't need to do it again. All I want is thee." And she smiled and accepted me. Kali and Kalidasa. Ma taught me well. She let me know about some of my previous births, the ones that mattered most to my present existence. But she didn't want me to learn everything at once. For a play to be well acted, sometimes it is better that the actors have no idea of what they're doing. In this way, they act out their parts with greater spontaneity and feeling. When you know who you are, it changes everything. Kalidasa's poetry is taught in schools and colleges all over India, but only a few people know the story of his life, even though he was India's greatest classical poet. He was a great devotee of Ma, as his name suggests, servant of Kali. For 9 incarnations, he worshipped Ma, and he ended each life by sacrificing himself. He would cut off his own head and let the blood spill over Ma's feet out of his own intense love for her. In his 10th birth, he was born amazingly stupid and horribly ugly. He couldn't even take proper care of himself, much less worship the goddess Kali. He was a woodcutter, and since everyone knew what a dud he was, they would take advantage of him by buying his wood for 2 rupees, when the other woodcutters would sell the same quantity for 10. But he was happy to have plenty of customers, and he had enough to eat, so he was satisfied. Now, the king of the country had a daughter who was as clever as she was beautiful. When the time came for her to marry, she announced that she would only marry the man who could defeat her at debate. Anyone who tried and failed would be executed. Many princes saw her face and fell in love with her, and all of them were beheaded when they failed to out-argue her. The king lost his temper one day and called for his minister and told him to find for him the stupidest man in the kingdom. Just to teach her a lesson, he announced, "I am going to marry my daughter to him." The minister knew better than to protest, so off he went in search of the stupidest man in the kingdom. It did not take him long to locate Kalidasa, who was busily chopping off the branch on which he was sitting, when the minister walked by. He told Kalidasa that the king wanted to meet him. Kalidasa said, "Why? I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I meet the king?" This is the way he used to talk. He was something like a fakir, always in his own mood. The minister said, "No, no. The king wants to meet you, to present you with something." When Kalidasa replied, "If the king is so anxious to meet me, he can come here." The minister ordered the 2 soldiers who had accompanied him to grab Kalidasa and drag him to the place. When the king saw Kalidasa, he was amazed that such a stupid man could exist. He told him, "I want you to marry my daughter." Kalidasa said, "Why should I marry your daughter? There are plenty of other girls in the kingdom to choose from." The king was not amused and said, "If you don't agree to marry my daughter, your head will be chopped off." Kalidasa shrugged his shoulders. During the wedding ceremony, the princess was veiled so she couldn't see her husband properly. Afterward, she went to the bedroom which had been prepared for the honeymoon. It was a beautiful, rainy night, with a light drizzle falling as she looked out the open window. It was the rutting season, and many of the forest animals were giving full throat to their mating calls. She saw her husband sitting quietly nearby, and thinking him to be shy, she considered how to awaken in him the urge for love play. Just then, a camel delivered his peculiar rasping mating call, and she coyly asked her husband, who was calling for his mate. Her idea was that he should realize she wanted him to come to her, like the animals do, for sex. The Sanskrit word for camel is ushtra. But even that single word was beyond the ability of poor Kalidasa to pronounce, and he replied, "Utru, utru." His wife lost all erotic intoxication in that instant and thought to herself, "Can my father have really done this to me?" Then she said to Kalidasa, "You can't speak Sanskrit, you can converse only in degraded language, and you couldn't even comprehend the reason for my question. Get out, you're not fit for me." For the first time in his life, Kalidasa felt hurt and insulted. It was all Ma's doing, of course. She was calling him. He was so disgusted with his condition that he left his house and wandered into a Kali temple. He started beating his head against the feet of the image. Remember the influence of his 9 previous births, until a few drops of blood fell onto the goddess's feet. That was enough. The goddess Kali herself appeared outside the temple and banged on the door. "Let me in," she cried. "I am Kali. Ask for anything." Kalidasa got up and stood behind the door so she wouldn't be able to open it, and shouted, "I don't trust you." He had suddenly become vaguely aware of his previous births, and now he was afraid that Kali would again refuse to save him. Kali said, "No, you don't understand. Trust me." Kalidasa said in a hurt voice, "No, why should I trust you? I trusted you 9 times before. Look at me now." Ma said sweetly, "Trust me. Just open the door a crack and see that it is really your Kali." Kalidasa said, "I will stick my tongue out the door, that's all." And when he did, Ma struck his tongue, and immediately he received divine speech. Not only that, but he became tall and handsome. You may not believe that. I don't care. But it's true. From that time forward, Ma was with him 24 hours a day. Spontaneously, a beautiful verse in praise of Ma fell from his lips. When Kalidasa returned to the palace, no one recognized him, but it was easy enough to gain entry to the king by reciting a poem. Back then, kings loved poetry, so Kalidasa recited a poem praising the great beauty of the princess. He described the wrinkles in her hips when she turned, her high projecting breasts, the curvature of her waist, her navel. Kalidasa is famous for his smiles and metaphors, so he compared each part of her body to an appropriate image from nature. And during the recitation itself, the king's daughter happened to come onto the women's balcony behind the throne, and when she beheld Kalidasa, she instantly fell in love with him. When Kalidasa lifted his eyes and saw the princess, he didn't bother to speak. He expressed his emotions with a look and a smile. What subtlety there is in the old ways of expression. When the princess saw this, she could no longer control herself, and she said to her father, "I must marry this man. He is the only man in the world who is fit for me." The king indignantly replied, "Do you realize what you were saying? You were already married." The princess said, "I don't care. I must have this man." Imagine the surprise in the court when Kalidasa said quietly, "I am your husband." Kalidasa thanked the king for giving him his daughter in marriage. The king, in turn, offered Kalidasa vast lands, which were politely declined. Then the princess came down to her father's throne and in front of the entire assembly kissed her father and said, "I thank you, father, for having given me a husband worthy of my qualities." And the king, having a sigh of relief, was vindicated for marrying his daughter off to that poor idiot Kalidasa. Kalidasa left that kingdom and went to Ujjain, where he embellished the court of King Aditya. Do you know his poem Meghaduta, in which a lonely yaksha angel pines for the wife who has been separated from him? Kalidasa based that poem on the experience of his wedding night. In his previous condition, he had been unable to express all the misery of his rejection. But thanks to the grace of Ma, he took his unfortunate experience and converted it into sublime verse. If he had not been ignorant in the beginning, he would never have been selected to marry the princess. He would never have been driven by desperation to pound his head on the rock, and he might never have been saved by Ma so he could win the princess back. Ma wanted him to live for a while in the world and provide us with his sublime poetry. Suppose he had realized her right away. Would he have had the idea to get married and live a householder's life? Never. The bliss of living with Ma is billions of times greater than all mundane pleasures. She wanted to entangle him partially in her Maya, and then to save him, so that while he was working out his entanglements, he would amaze the world as her tongue, her mouthpiece. At other times, Ma will let someone worship her for years until circumstances force that person to relinquish their bondage of Maya, and then she comes to him. It is all her play. Vidyaranya. About 600 years ago, in the time of Vijayanagara, in the time of the Vijayanagara Empire in South India, the prime minister of one of the kings was named Vidyaranya, who was a great devotee of Ma. It came to pass that in the course of time, Vidyaranya was ruined. He lost his position and was reduced to almost nothing. All his power and most of his wealth were taken away, and as a result, his family began to hate and abuse him. He became so fed up with everything that he decided to renounce the world and become a hermit. He went out into the forest and made a pledge to this effect. Then he worshipped Ma one last time. At the height of his power, the zenith of his glory, he worshipped with the best items available. Solid gold dishes were set aside for Ma's use. Priceless jewels adorned her. She was offered only the choicest foods. Now, reduced to poverty, he could do nothing but prepare unleavened bread out of mud and offer it to her, saying, "I'm sorry, Ma. Now I have nothing. I can no longer worship you as I did before." Suddenly Ma stood before him and said, "Speak your wish." He looked at her quizzically and said, "Ma, what are you talking about? If you had really wanted to give me something, you should have arrived 5 minutes ago. Then I could have accepted something. Now I have vowed to renounce worldly things. So I don't want anything, not even you. I only want God." Ma smiled at him and said, "Don't you understand yet? Close your eyes." When he did, he saw mountains and mountains of ashes and a small pile of something that was still emitting smoke. He still couldn't understand, so Ma explained it to him. "You have been worshipping me for many years," she said, "and by my grace all the karmas of your previous births have been burned to ashes except that little pile, which is all that remains. If you had not lost your position, you would never have renounced life, so it was essential for you to be ruined. Do you see?" Vidyaranya did full prostration to her, and immediately went into a state of divine intoxication. Afterward, he wrote a famous Sanskrit treatise called Jivan Mukti Viveka. This is what grace can do for you. You see, when you have learned your lesson and have only the desire for Ma remaining in your heart, she will come to you. Then you have a chance to achieve. But when Ma does come to you, don't ask for grace. Grace is hers to give according to her own sweet will. You can't get it on your own. Ask for compassion, learning, jnana, and when you get jnana, you will know how to obtain grace. Sarvananda and Purananda. In the entire world, so far only 2 people, when Ma came to them, asked for Sarva Vidya, the knowledge of each and every aspect of Shakti. One was Sarvananda Thakur of Bengal. I can't tell you about the other. Sarvananda was a Brahmin, the son of the court astrologer of the king of Tripura. The astrologer was able to get a son only after long years of penance of Shiva, and the boy was actually something like Shiva incarnate, but he didn't realize it until later. One day, when Sarvananda was still a young boy, his father took him into the court to show him off to the king, in hopes of some largesse because of his precocity. There was an assemblage of astrologers there in the court, debating on the lunar day. Actually, it was the new moon day, but when Sarvananda was asked, he opined that it was the full moon day. This drew guffaws from the conclave of astrologers and a slap from the embarrassed father, who was concerned about the position and how to save his face. He forgot that his son was the gift of Lord Shiva. Would he have dared to slap Shiva? The boy became angry and ran home. His old servant, Purananda, saw the condition of his young master, and, wiping his tears, consoled him a bit. Then Purananda sent the boy out into the jungle with a knife to gather palm leaves, onto which he would copy part of some astrological texts and teach the boy himself. At that time, all writing was done in palm leaves. Sarvananda climbed the palm tree, carrying the knife, and let his anger boil over by slashing at the palm leaves. Meanwhile, nature had sent an ethereal being of very high order to look after Sarvananda. This Siddha took a physical body, and then created an illusory cobra, and then sent it up the tree in which Sarvananda was sitting. When the boy saw the snake, all his anger focused on it. "So you want to bite me," he said to the snake. "Okay, but I'm going to cut you first. How do you like that?" And saying these words, he hacked the snake into 2 by rubbing it against the sharp palm leaf. He then threw the pieces down at the base of the tree. Now, the Siddha was sitting there, and when he felt the blood and flesh of the dead cobra fall onto his matted locks, he said, "What's this? Come down here." The boy descended, expecting the worst. But the Siddha merely stroked his head and said, "I know all about it, my boy, and I want to help you out." Using the snake's blood, he wrote the details of the type of Shava Sedhana, which would please Ma if properly performed. Then Sarvananda returned to Purnananda and told him the whole story. Purnananda read the details and then told him, "This must be performed on a new moon night, which is tonight. Let's do this. We'll go together to the Smashan. You kill me, and then sit on my corpse and do as I tell you. Then Ma will come and ask what you want. Tell her, please revive Purnananda and do as he says. That way Ma will appear to us both." That night, they went to the Smashan, and the boy cut the old man's throat and sat on his body, repeating the mantra given to him. After a few repetitions, Ma appeared, and asked the boy what he desired. He told her as Purnananda had instructed him. She revived Purnananda, and he too saw her. Then she again asked, "What do you want?" Purnananda replied, All the so-called great astrologers ridiculed my boy for saying tonight was the full moon night. Preserve my boy's honor. Ma smiled, and from the nail of her little finger, a ball of light emerged, which was so bright that for miles around it seemed a full moon. All the astrologers back at the court were wonderstruck. Sarvananda was just a child, innocent of the ways of Satanas. But he was so overcome with love for Tara that he told her, Ma, you have been so kind to show me your form, but I want to see you in all your forms, all your manifestations, because I want to know you completely, so I can love you properly. Tara smiled at him again and agreed. Sarvananda had no idea of the meaning of Sarvavidya, but by asking for all the forms of Ma, Sarvavidya was what he received. If nature wants you to succeed at something, a situation will be created whereby you will request the right thing, knowingly or not. Purnananda actually became Sarvananda's disciple, and became himself a great pandit and scholar. It was in fact Purnananda's works that inspired the late Justice Sir John Woodruff of the Calcutta High Court to introduce the subject of Kundalini to the West under the pen name of Arthur Avalon. And Sarvananda? He became a householder, and then one day he disappeared. No one knows what became of him. Normally, you will not even think to ask for Sarvavidya. That is part of Ma's play. But even so, when she gives you knowledge, you become the expert, the gem in your own field. The motherhood of the goddess. Sarvananda was very lucky. Ma came to him while he was still a boy, so he automatically treated her like a mother. Only one person out of millions develops a desire to experience the motherhood of God. There is nothing higher than the worship of the mother, because only the mother can show the child the face of its father. Just as the child is taught by its physical mother the identity of its father, grandparents, and other relatives, even so, the Divine Mother shows her child the face of its father, Shiva, the universal soul. That is why you should try to succeed at the worship of God with attributes first, and your chosen deity will then lead you on to the attributeless ultimate reality. Who is the source of all attributes after all? Ma. Not all Aghoris treat Ma as mother, you understand, but I think it is wisest to do so. Always remember to control any Shakti properly is not easy, and to control cosmic Shaktis is almost impossibly difficult. To catch hold of Kali by the hair and tell her, "Come to me right now," is rather dangerous. That makes it a contest of wills, and unless your will is stronger, Kali will frighten you into insanity or heart failure. Not because she hates you. Oh no, she never hates anyone, though of course no one likes to be ordered around. No, she loves you and wants to play with you. But if an elephant wrestles with a mosquito, what will be the outcome? If you treat Ma like your wife, and I'm not saying it's impossible. I once knew a saint who did it, who projected his worship onto a statue of Ma and worshipped her as his spouse, and eventually succeeded. Then one day find a human woman who seems attractive to you because of some connection from a past lifetime. You might suddenly find yourself projecting your worship onto the Maya, onto the flesh and blood instead of into the essence. Because your worship has built up so much energy, your descent into Maya will be all the deeper, and who knows how long it might take to drag you out. The best way to treat Shakti is as a mother. It can save you from so many karmas also. If you look at all women as your mother, would you ever think of raping or cheating or deceiving one? And if you see the Divine Mother in all beings, can you ever intentionally injure anyone? No. And this automatically draws you away from the cycle of action and reaction. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa saw the Divine Mother in everyone, including even his own wife, and look what it did for him. You can go into all the world's religions, but nowhere can you find anything so sublime as our vision of the motherhood of God. Christianity has it to some extent with the worship of the Virgin Mary, but the worship of the Mother has been perfected only in India because India is herself a mother. India has sheltered so many foreign races and religions, Jews, Zoroastrians, Christians, Muslims, etc., and it's allowed all of them to flourish in their own ways. Has any other country ever done this? Because of this, the cow is the symbol of India. The cow is the perfect mother. She has 4 teats. One for her calf, one for guests including birds and animals, one for use in rituals, and one for a master. The milk is automatically divided into 4 equal portions. Everyone is provided for, and the cow is passionately devoted to her calf, just as a real mother must be to her child. Sometimes the mere sight of the calf makes milk flow from the cow's udders, not drip, flow. I have seen this more than once when I owned a dairy. And if the calf dies, the cow refuses to give milk. Not like our water buffaloes, who can be tricked with the head of a calf on a stick. The buffalo is the symbol of tamas, stupidity, dullness. The cow is pure sattva, mental brightness. And not just buffaloes. Even your western cows will give milk whether or not the calf is still alive. When I always say that this is the fundamental difference between East and West, I'm not just talking through my hat. What is so great about giving milk? All animals do it. The greatness in our Indian cows is that they give milk only out of an outpouring of love. That is the value of cow's milk. Won't at least a little of that love come through into the milk? It must. The emotion separates cows from other animals. So how are we wrong to worship cows? We are not worshiping the hide, hooves, and tail. We worship the essence. A few years ago, I read in the newspaper that an American cow suddenly devoured 5 dozen baby chicks who happened to be playing in front of her. No Indian cow would do that. Indian cows mother little animals. You know that Lord Krishna was called Gopala when he was a baby. Gopala literally means protector of cows. There are many esoteric meanings to this word, but even the obvious meaning is beautiful. Gopala was such a lovable little baby that all the cows in the vicinity loved him more than they loved their own calves. This is why I always say that you should treat God as your mother. The baby is the best controller of Shakti because there is no desire at all except for the mother. And therefore, the mother will be perfectly, continuously attentive to the child. Always sit in the mother's lap. When you get out of her lap and try to protect yourself, she says, "All right, go on, go ruin yourself." How can you take care of yourself? You cannot. The law of karma is too big for anyone to tackle alone. But if you stay in the mother's lap and always rely on her for everything you need, she will always provide it. Can any real mother ever neglect her child or try to make it not try to make it happy? As long as you treat Ma as your own mother, she will treat you as her own child. How does a mother know when her child is hungry? It cries. Whenever it cries in a particular way, the mother knows, yes, it's time for feeding. I know this from my own experience. When I am really angry, disgusted with the world, Ma comes to me and taps me on the shoulder, as it were, and says, "Forget all about that. Do you know?" And she proceeds to teach me something new, something I had never dreamt of, something so amazing that I become speechless and forget my anger completely. What compassion! Was there ever a mother such as she? When the baby is not crying, however, its mother knows that its little tummy is full, and she does not bother about it. It is the same way with the world. As long as you are quietly enjoying your life as a human, Ma thinks, well, he is satisfied. Let him be. What use does he have for me? And when you decide you are finished with life and want to get out of the unending cycle of birth and death, then there is only one thing to do. Scream, cry out, demand that Ma should come and take care of you. And that is the only way that Ma will ever come to you. You have to desire her much more than anything else. And there are so many obstacles to that in this dark age, in this Kali Yuga. But if you can identify yourself with a newborn baby, then what desires remain? A baby is too innocent to be aware of any but the simplest, the most essential desires. In that state, there is no question of temptation. If you give a baby a choice between chocolate and a diamond, which will it take? The chocolate, of course. A diamond has no value for a baby. And if you learn that the world has no value, You will never be tempted by anything. You will be able to avoid all the obstacles which crop up in Kali Yuga. But only a baby can do that. This is why I love the baby Gopala and the baby Jesus so much. You know, we Vedics believe that the same rishis who incarnated on this earth as Rama and later as Krishna and also incarnated as Jesus, we take Jesus as one of us. But look what has happened to Christianity, to the beautiful teachings of Jesus. They have slaughtered so many millions in the name of Christ. When Christ preached that one must always turn the other cheek. But Jesus, his eyes, and the image of the mother and the child, the baby Jesus playing with the Shakti, it is so sublime. Christians are just such fools to have received such a teaching than to make such hash out of it. But this is the thing. As Kipling said, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. In a way he was right. The Easterners have value only for emotion. You Westerners, like your cows, are basically materialistic. Of course there are exceptions, mind you, but when nature herself has created such differences in people, how can the one race understand the other? It takes a lot of effort. The vision of the goddess. There is another good reason to become a baby in front of Ma. Babies love their mothers, no matter how vicious or ugly they may be. To talk idly about Ma's form is one thing, but to actually see her dripping with blood, her fangs ready to devour you, is quite another. Your reaction to her determines what she can do for you. If you don't react with fear, she will do anything for you out of love. If you react with fear or disgust, she will become all the more fearsome and disgusting. And then where will you be? Kali and all her manifestations, Smashantara, Chinnamasta, Bagalamukhi, and the others are not bad. No one wants to love them. Everyone is afraid. Kali can't understand why everyone is afraid of her. If you love her enough, you will change her natural destructiveness to such an extent that even the underlying thirst for butchery will vanish. People think that Smashantara is the most terrifying of the goddesses, and she is. One of her names is Bhayankari, that is, the Terrifier. But if you go to her with a heart full of love for Lord Krishna, she becomes Radha, Krishna's greatest lover. If you treat her as a mother, she loves you as a mother loves her child. But if you have no faith in Ma, the great goddess, and if you fail, then there remains nothing for you but to be born over and over again until you get it right. You may go to an image of Ma and tell her, "Wah, Ma, how lovely you are," or "how frightening," or whatever. But the emotion you feel is only a reaction to her outer form. You must know what sort of being you are worshipping if you ever want to develop a real relationship with her. If you ever want to get underneath her skin and reach her inner being. Without knowing her inner being, how can you know her? And before trying to go inside, you must first understand her external form, because it is actually your external form. The Atman, or universal soul, is the orb of the sun, and you are the reflection. Just as the moon can be reflected in thousands of pools of water at once, the Atman can appear in millions of humans and still remain aloof, untouched. Most humans are imperfect reflections because they are enmeshed in the three gunas, the three principal qualities of existence. If a lake is disturbed, it cannot reproduce truthfully the image of the moon. But when it is calm, the image is perfect. When you see Ma, you are seeing her through the veil, the film of the three gunas, which explains why you cannot see her in her true form in the beginning. Why is she blue? First, ask that, and once you've understood it, you'll be able to comprehend the rest. Why is the sky or the sea blue? If you pick up a handful of seawater, it is clear, but the sea as a whole seems blue. Air is colorless, but the sky is not. These are optical illusions, and the fact that you see Ma, or even Krishna for that matter, as blue is also an optical illusion, because you are seeing them with your physical eye. Were you able to see with the divine eye, you would see something quite different. But to you now, Smashantara is Shyama, a deep, rich, luminous midnight blue. Around her neck is a garland of freshly severed human heads, what we call in Sanskrit a runda mala. There are 8 grinning heads on this garland. They represent the 8 nooses, the emotions which cloud the mind and incite one to perform karmas, thereby creating a tighter bondage to the ever-spinning wheel of birth and death. These 8 nooses, or snares, pashas in Sanskrit, with which you could hang yourself, are lust, anger, greed, delusion, envy, shame, fear, and disgust. While you are in a state of ignorance, you possess one or many or all of these emotions or grinning heads. Smashantara tells you, I chop off your head to cure you of this malady, to free you from the grip of these snares. Most people, unfortunately, are so attached to their snares that they shrink from Smashantara in fear, thinking she wants to kill them. She does want to kill you, the false you, the limited personality which has accrued over so many births. You fear her because you identify yourself with this mediocre personality when your true personality is something quite different. When she cuts off your head, your mind becomes firm, unwavering in its concentration, which enables you to succeed at AGHORA sadhanas. Smashantara is Gadastani, or pot-breasted. What is a more appropriate symbol of motherhood than the female breast? Motherhood is inherent in all women. Take a tiny girl of 2 or 3 and give her a doll. How she will mother it. She will fuss over it, feed it, put it to bed. You will rarely find any boy who will bother so much about a doll. Women are meant to be mothers. The instinct is inborn. But it is only potential until the woman actually bear the child herself or adopts one. The motherliness fully manifests. Even this realization does not develop spontaneously. It develops along with the child. In the case of humans, as the child develops in the womb, the mother's breasts enlarge and the nipples darken. The breasts actually double in size and weight during pregnancy. Milk also begins to form. The body is preparing food for the child even before its birth. Isn't nature magnanimous? Most men see the breast and think of sex, but you'll ruin yourself if you try to treat Smashantara as your sex partner. You are just not strong enough to do so. Only a handful are. So you must realize she is coming to you as a mother to love and protect you, and welcome her in that way. She is Lambodari, or big-bellied, because she consumes and digests all beings in the universe. She brings them into her before sending them out again. Around her waist, she wears a skirt of human arms, freshly severed. One of the Sanskrit words for hand or arm is kara, which is related to the word karma. These arms represent all the karmas of all your millions of births. There are both left and right arms, so they include all karmas, auspicious and inauspicious. Most people clothe themselves in their karmas, and she wants to cut them off, remove them from you completely. Why does she wear them as a skirt? Because they cover the navel and pubis. And are these not the 2 things for which the majority of karmas are performed? The belly and the genitals? Won't most people do anything for food and sex? In anklets, Smashantara does not wear silver jewelry, but tiny cobras. The cobra is always the symbol of the deceased ancestor. When you do sadhana, you must always remember you are not doing it for yourself alone, but for all your progenitors. Since had it not been for them, you could never have taken a human rebirth. She tells you, these are your ancestors who have come to me and taken the shelter of my lotus feet. Smashantara has 4 hands. In one there is a skull, which symbolizes the coating of the 3 gunas which surrounds the individual's soul. The noose in another hand represents the noose which Yama's messengers of death use to snatch the living from this world. By seizing this noose from Yama, the king of the dead, she grants you the boon of immortality, because then there is no way for Yama to take you. With immortality comes fearlessness, since the basis of all fears is the fear of death. The third hand holds a pair of scissors, with which she cuts the three Gordian knots that bind you to embodied existence. This is connected with Kundalini Yoga. And finally, in her fourth hand, she carries a sharp sword, called a Khadga, which is symbolic of the eternal play of destruction and creation of the universe. To you, it means destruction of your doubts, your false ideas and impressions. She strikes through them all with her sword, and because people die of doubt, this ensures you will never die. Finally, her face. I think it's the most beautiful I have ever seen. She has lotus eyes. Remember, the lotus is the symbol of discrimination, and her tongue lolls from her mouth, dripping blood. All creatures, no matter how tiny, have some sort of blood-like substance. When she takes it from them, she purifies the blood, as they say in Tantra, through the process known as Rakta Shuddhi. What this means is that she removes so many of the karmas which have forced the individual to be born into a particular womb that a higher rebirth is guaranteed. She actually alters the patterns of your personality, which is merely the aggregate of all your countless karmas in myriads of births. This is the Adhi Daivika Rakta Shuddhi, that is, Tara's purification of your personality. When you have realized, not just mentally comprehended, but realized through your own experience in sadhana, all the qualities of Smashan Tara, then she is no longer blue to you. She loses all color, all attributes. When you come and rest on her lap, all your wrong ideas about her are removed. You see her as she really is. You can't see her with the physical eye. In Sanskrit and most Indian languages, the eye taken as a whole is a feminine noun. The eyeball is masculine, the pupil is feminine, and the retina, called parda, or curtain in Hindi, is masculine. So you see the dual nature of external universe is mirrored in the physical eye. With the physical eye, you cannot hope to see anything but duality. But when the curtain is lifted, you see the absolute, undifferentiated reality. What we call in Sanskrit the Nirakara Tattva. Not even the shreds of distinction remain. Can a blind man tell the sex of someone in front of him? Only if he gropes. The state in which you see Smashan Tara is the Nirakara form. The state in which you see Smashan Tara in the Nirakara form is Nirvikalpa Samadhi, self-identification with formlessness. So you begin with ignorance, unable to distinguish EYE from I. You see Smashan Tara in her terrifying form because you are possessed of the 8 nooses, of aeons of karma, and all the rest of the filth of your false personality, and she wants to disconnect it from you in the fastest way possible. Then you see both you and her as one, when all differences disappear. You cannot be different from her. Finally, if you are meant for it, you again return to her lap and see her in her old form. But how different it will look to you then. You can't imagine it, you simply have to experience it. You go from duality to unity and back to duality, just as Paramahamsa Ramakrishna did. My Tara always stands on Shiva, who is deep in samadhi. One foot is flat on his body, while the other is prodding him. Wake up! Wake up! Come dance with me! Why is Shiva in samadhi? Shiva here is actually Jiva, the individual soul plus its coverings of the 3 gunas and all the rest. Because of the heavy overlay of karmas and gunas and what have you, the Jiva is always in a state of deep sleep, unaware. When, because of hard penances and stiff sadhana, you realize Shiva, the Jiva becomes Shiva, then you can say, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. Then you see there is not the slightest difference between Jiva and Shiva. Some gurus tell their disciples to repeat Shivoham, Shivoham, but it is really useless. They begin imagining they are Shiva without having any of his qualities. Once Shiva awakens, he and his Shakti begin to dance together, and the dance ends with her merging into him again. When the projection of Shakti occurs, Shiva sleeps because he has lost the part of him which was aware of himself, his true self. After Shakti wakes Shiva, she ceases to exist. It is only when your ego forgets all the 8 nooses and the rest, which force it to self-identify with the body, the physical I, and identify with Smashantara, because your ego is simply your own personal Shakti, that the ego awakens the Shiva, capital I, and the dance begins. One final thing. Do you know why Smashantara is always depicted in the Smashan near a roaring funeral pyre? It is not your physical body she is burning on that pyre. It is your causal body. She cremates all the billions of karmas filled in the storehouse which is your causal body, thereby freeing you from further obligation of being born into this world. See Ma, evaluate her from all her facets. Find out about her yourself, and find out the way you can love her best. Most humans are such idiots that they are terrified of Ma, because they are afraid to disengage themselves from their filth. You must see her in her playful form, her terrifying form, all her forms, and love her. That is the end of Chapter 2. Next time I will begin on Chapter 3, Shiva. I feel like I don't sound quite as retarded as I did when I began. I'm getting a little tongue-tied as I go on further. This is the longest I've lasted doing one of these readings. Usually I cut it in about half this time. Thanks for sticking around with me. I'll be back soon. God bless.